Why does NEET exam have physics in the first place? It's the subject that I just can't handle. It is too tough for me. The questions are impossible. Calculations are impossible. One has to be good at maths, calculus, whatnot, and you have to have the IQ of an Albert Einstein to clear NEET exam. I'm not all that. I'm not Albert Einstein. I don't know maths. I'm poor at calculus. I'm very bad at calculations. NEET is beyond me. I will never be able to clear NEET. I can't score in any NEET physics test. I'm not going to be able to clear NEET. Physics is going to be my whatever Achilles heel or whatever physics is. It's impossible. I'm not clearing this NEET exam. And it's all because of this damn thing called physics. Keep this guy out of your life. He was your self-doubt, your delusion, and your confusion. Get rid of him forever, because NEET is much easier than you think. And physics is easier than you think. And NEET physics is particularly easy actually. NEET physics presents a much lower level of challenge than practically any one of you is easily capable of handling. आप लोग नीट का चैलेंज को बहुत आसानी से हैंडल कर सकते हो, and I am certain when I say this about all of you. So, NEET exam presents a challenge, yes, and physics is the biggest challenge in the NEET exam. Perhaps yes, for most of you. But it's a lot easier than you think. And let me assure you here that you're more than capable of handling this NEET challenge. You're more than capable of handling it, and it can be done fairly easily. And in this discussion, I'm going to come up with strategies, with the long-term strategies, short-term strategies, and perhaps even quick fixes for the physics score puzzle in the NEET exam. Now see, the NEET exam is, as I said, much easier than you think. And now I discuss why. Your approach to learning is the problem. Your approach to the subject is the problem. The first real issue is get rid of this fear and this phobia. Let me assure you, it's totally irrational, and I will also explain as to why it has happened in the first place. Why you have developed this fear of physics is because you've been approaching it all wrong. In fact, you've been approaching learning all wrong. Ever since you grew up, you have had this method approach to learning. You have never really learnt science or maths the way they should be learnt. It was always this stupid method approach. In the earlier classes, all the way up to class 10, even the subject of maths, where you could have developed analytical skills, you did not. Not that it's your fault, that's how the system works. Because it's marks that count, it's marks you got. And the way to get these marks was to develop this method approach to learning. What is this method approach to learning? Well, for this kind of questions, there is this approach. For this kind of questions, there is this approach. For this kind, there is this approach. That's what you learned. So what you learned was methods for solving the kind of questions that are going to be asked in the exam. So every time you learned mathematics, what you learned was how to solve a specific kind of question. And therefore, when the exam came and those questions came, which were predictable, you were able to answer them because you knew how a particular question was to be approached. Unfortunately, that does not work when you're really required to do some real serious problem solving, the kind that you're asked to do in the NEET exam, or perhaps even in fact much more so in the JEE mains and the JEE advanced exams, where you're required to do a bit of problem solving. Now these exams where problem solving is the main concern, you will be found short with this method approach to learning. I know there are a whole lot of students who do this even in NEET, and with some extreme kind of labor and effort they're able to clear NEET even with this approach. But the amount of effort required is exponentially higher than what is really necessary. What is really necessary is an approach where you learn the subject and forget the exam. Just learn the subject, forget the exam, understand the basics, enjoy solving problems related to the chapters, related to the concepts. Just have fun with it, and if you have enough fun with the subject, you will clear NEET or JEE or whatever other exam you want to clear. That's how simple it is. Unfortunately, that's what you don't do. What you do is stick to that method approach to learning. You're too focused on the exam and not on the subject. My advice to you is focus on learning the subject, have fun with it, and forget about what exam you're going to take. You will perhaps score poorly in the NEET kind of tests or the JEE main kind of tests initially, but that's not because you're doing something wrong. That's because the analytical skill has not developed. There are two aspects to problem solving. One is an understanding of the subject, of the concepts. Now this is where a fairly good majority of students are good, but where they lack is the analytical skill of solving problems with those concepts, with those ideas. So what's missing is the analytical ability. What's missing is the analytical skill. That's something you need to develop because you've never developed it. You've never developed it because of the method approach to learning. So it's not your fault that you're not yet good at it, but it is going to be your fault if you don't get good at it in the time to come, because now you're going to know how to get good at it as well. So the approach that will take you further with problem solving is not solving enormous numbers of questions and practicing them. That helps you score higher, but that comes later. First, you have to develop the skill of problem solving. Speed comes much later. In the first few months of preparation for NEET, what you need is a small bunch of problems, and what's needed is, with the understanding of the subject, you approach these problems, you attack them, you fight with them, and you keep doing that till they get solved by you. Don't look at the solutions that your coaching class provides you. Don't look at the solutions in the book, and don't ask for solutions from your teachers. Solve these questions yourself. In physics, there are very few concepts. Newton Babaji just gave 3 laws and not a 4th one, and those 3 are enough for solving most mechanics problems. So if you really get my point, it's not about knowing more, it's about doing more with a small set of questions, small set of good questions. When you struggle with questions, you get good at problem solving. When I was preparing for JEE, somebody gave me a book and marked out about 1,000 problems, really challenging problems, and told me to solve those 1,000 problems, and told me also that if I solve most of these, I will clear JEE. Now, when I started attempting those problems, they were really challenging. They were very tough. And at times, I couldn't solve them after making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attempts. So what I started doing was, every time I would attempt a problem, I would put a dot on it. And then maybe a day or two later, I would attack that problem again. And again, I would fail to solve, and I would put a dot over there. And I would keep putting these dots till the problem got solved. Now, that book had questions with more than 200 dots. I got obsessed with solving those questions. So I made maybe even 200 attempts at some of the questions, which tells you two things. One, I was not very smart, which I knew. But also, it tells you I was persistent. And it's not smartness that it takes to clear JEE, NEET, etc. What it takes is persistence. You keep fighting with these questions, and you keep fighting and you keep fighting, and there will be a time when you will get good at problem solving. My suggestion is, make sure that you put 5,000 dots in one quality physics textbooks. Students all ask me, sir, or what other book can I solve? Or kaun sa kitab hum kare? Which other book can I use so that I get good? Because kids are always looking for something out there that some other people know that I don't know. And if I can get my handle on that, I'll get good at problem solving. It does not happen like that. Whatever you have is good enough. If you're studying in a coaching institute, if you're even preparing all by yourself at home, if you have one good decent physics book with some decent problems in it, absolutely any book, you solve those problems, attack them, you will get good at problem solving. So that's my approach, that's my suggestion about what you should be doing. Especially when you're at an early stage in preparation. Kids prepare for 2, 3, 4 years these days. If you're at an early stage, let's say early class 11 or even early class 12, then you have lots of time on your hand. You have at least a year or perhaps even 2, and that's lots and lots of time. More than enough time to get very good at the subject. And also, of course, at problem solving. So this is what I suggest regarding getting good at problem solving. But I have some other suggestions too. This that I have made is a suggestion that gets you good in the long term. 5,000 dots, well, that takes some doing. Interestingly, I'm not asking you to successfully solve 5,000 questions or any such thing. It could be a bunch of 500 questions for which you sometimes make multiple attempts and fail to solve them 5,000 times. So all I'm asking you is to fail 5,000 times, fail 10,000 times at solving questions. If you have the persistence to fail that much, you will succeed. I'm asking you to fail your way to success. Now for some nitty-gritty kind of advice. You see, the NEET exam and also to a very large extent the JEE main exam does not require very big problem solving skills. All they require is some basic skill sets, basic understanding of the subject, very basic level skills of problem solving, not very high level, mostly superficial, almost formulaic kind of application of the concepts of the subject. The problem actually comes up from somewhere else. Now let me tell you what happens in the NEET exam or even the JEE main exam. Perhaps 80 to 90% questions, or at least 80% questions maybe in the NEET exam, and 60% questions in the JEE main exam are actually very, very elementary. Even a student with an average IQ, with a bit of effort, with some effort at learning the subject, the concepts, and some decent level of problem solving skill, with a little bit of effort, can do this 60% of the JEE mains and 80% of the NEET physics paper. It's that simple. Unfortunately, what happens is that your focus is not on this 80% or 60%, and it's not your fault. Most coaching programs tend to focus more on the remaining 20 or 40%, which at least as of now you're not capable of handling. You know, in the NEET exam, 80% questions are simple and 20% are challenging. Coaching programs try to make sure that you get good at those 20% as well, so that you can handle 100% of the paper very, very well, which is all very good. Unfortunately, the effect this has on the psyche of the average student is that because there is so much focus on the remaining 20%, which is very challenging, which is very difficult, the student gets disheartened very quickly because they don't think that they're capable of solving those kinds of questions, because they are the more common ones in the assignments, they are the more common ones in the coaching class tests. The coaching class tests tend to focus more on these more challenging problems, not only in their assignments but also in their tests. So in coaching class tests, these more challenging questions may be 50 to 60% perhaps. And since you don't score very well, you get disheartened and you give up. Stop worrying too much about these scores. Stop worrying about the fact that you could not solve some of the questions in the assignment set. It's not that important to be able to solve every question in the assignment set. What's important is that you struggle with it long enough. You attempt those questions long enough. And how long? Well, as long as it takes to solve them. That's the way to get good. But with most students, what happens? If they get stuck with a question, they look at the solution. They look at the solution provided by the coaching class study materials, or they ask a teacher for help. This help is poison, because this is spoiling your ability to solve questions. Do not seek such help. Keep struggling with those questions and you will get good. It may take 6 months, it may take a year, it may take a year and a half, but trust me, with time you will get good. But that 20% can come later. Let's talk more about the 80%. That 80% can be mastered by just learning the basic concepts, by being present in the class, by paying attention to what the teachers are teaching, reading the content in the books once, maybe twice, revising a few times, and that's usually enough to get that 80%. In the NEET exam, 80% is easy. In the JEE mains exam, 50 to 60% is easy. That's easy to conquer. And trust me, 50% in JEE mains and 80% in physics in NEET gets you selected in good, not just gets you selected, it gets you selected in good colleges. So focus on this first. Make sure you get selected first, and then you can think about your rank. Then you can think about the remaining 20% or the remaining 40% questions. Do not get bogged down by the 20%, which does not even matter, at least not for selection. If you're really struggling, so if today you're struggling and not scoring even 100 in your practice tests with your coaching classes, I have one simple suggestion. Don't worry too much about those scores as yet. Just focus on the 80% and you will probably start scoring much more than you're scoring currently. What can easily be done is, my suggestion for the exam taking strategy is that if during the exam, if during these practice tests over the next whatever period is left for you till the exam, you just make sure that while you're attempting physics, leave any question that you think has long calculations, leave any question that you think is going to take time to solve and understand, leave any question that you think has calculus and mathematics and scary things. Just solve the simple basic kind of questions, focus on the basic ones, leave out 10 to 20% of the questions. Now NEET exam for instance has 45 questions these days. Now 10% of that would be about 5 questions. So about 8 to 10 questions you can easily leave. Now leave out those 8, save your time. Just now how do you leave? Read the question, and if the feeling is it's long, tough, lengthy, involves calculus, etc., etc., leave the question, move to the next, and move to the next. Sometimes you may have to leave 2 or 3 questions in a row, and that's the real test for you, because it's difficult to leave 2 or 3 questions in a row. Once you get to an easy bunch of questions, then there will be a bunch of 10, 12 questions that you will be able to solve just like that quickly. Your confidence will grow, and perhaps you will have time left in the end even for the more challenging ones. But make sure you get those 80% right. What happens with a very large majority of students is they get stuck with the 10-20% tough questions and spend most of their time in the exam with those questions which they can't solve, or even if they can solve, it takes them too long, and they're not able to solve the remaining 80% questions which they would have solved so easily. So they end up getting scores of 25, 30, 40% where they could have easily scored 80% by leaving out these tough questions. So my suggestion to you, if you're struggling right now to improve your scores like tomorrow, leave the tough questions in the exam. I have given this suggestion to students and I have seen them progress. Trust me, it takes a bit of self-belief to do it. It's not that simple, but there are students who started doing this, and when they were starting to do this, they were scoring maybe 100, 90, 110, 120 out of 180. And when they started doing this, their scores immediately went up 140, 150, 155. And from there, they started growing further. The confidence grew, and there some of them are even scoring 170s. So it's very doable, but start doing it this way. The exam taking strategy also needs to change, and this is something you can do like today, and your scores will improve tomorrow. The other strategies that I have told you will work, but they will work in long term. This will work today, it will work tomorrow. So work on your exam taking skill. The most important skill in exam is to leave questions. Trust me, this is the skill that will get you selected in NEET or even in the JEE. So that's an important exam taking strategy that I recommend. And then the next issue. Sir, I have so much backlog. You know, you just joined some coaching classes, and in the coaching classes, let's say you're in class 11, and in your coaching class they're doing chapter 4. They're teaching Newton's laws, but you haven't even solved problems from units and dimensions and straight line motion and vectors and projectile motion. You haven't finished those assignments. You have this backlog. Oh my God, that's a scary word, backlog. And that backlog bogs students down so much that they give up. Mentally they give up, and they kind of even stop preparing and just go through the motions for the rest of their time till the NEET exam happens and failure happens. Banish this word backlog from your dictionary. Trust me, it's useless. Why you think you have a backlog? Because you define backlog incorrectly. If you attended the classes religiously, attentively, and you have, while after attending those classes, attempted some questions, not all questions available to you, but you attempted some questions that you have available to you, that's enough. If there are lots of questions lying with you which you haven't attempted, that's a gold mine waiting to be found. You keep attempting those slowly and your abilities will grow. Those questions are your gold mine. And so if you haven't solved some questions, a whole lot of questions in fact, and you think that's a backlog, no, that's not a backlog. That's your gold mine. That's where you get better at solving problems. Those are the problems that will provide you with those 5,000 dots. So keep attempting them as and when time becomes available. But always make sure you're attentive with the class, you're going with the class, whatever is being taught, you're revising immediately after class, maybe in a couple of days again, and then you're attempting some questions from that topic. What has just been taught, you have to attempt a few questions, not all available questions, but a few questions. And if you attempt a few questions, that's enough. Then it's no longer a backlog. So you attempted a few questions, you solved a few questions, fine, good, you're done. That's all is needed. Nothing more was required. The remaining questions are your gold mine that will get you to success later, that will get you to improve your problem solving skill, that will provide you with those thousands and thousands of dots. So with the advice that I've been giving today, if you take two things with you, NEET, JEE exam, they're easy. There's a fairly large percentage of questions that are easy. Focus on that first. In your practice tests, leave lots of questions and focus on the ones that you can easily do. It will surely improve your present scores. In the long term also, that's a good strategy to always leave questions that look too challenging in an exam situation. Don't be caught up with this usual board exam kind of style of exam taking where you have to solve every question and get 100%. It's not going to happen in NEET. It's not going to happen in JEE. Maybe in NEET it can happen to 5 or 10 people all over India over the next 3 years, but it doesn't happen normally. It doesn't happen to everyone. So you're going to not score 100%. You're not going to score 98% in these exams. For a very, very large majority of you, that's true. So you have to learn to leave questions. That's an important skill. Other thing is, just make sure you learn the subject, focus on the basics. When a topic is taught, revise it the same day. Within a couple of days, attempt a few problems. You should be able to solve most of the basic level problems within 2-3 days, and that's enough. If a lot of challenging problems are still remaining, that's not a backlog. That's a gold mine that gives you those thousands and thousands of dots that get you finally selected, right? So that's your practice, that's your process of making those dots that get you selected finally with great results. Okay. Also, get this fear, this phobia out of your minds. You're too good, you're good enough, and you will do well. But trust me, having fun with the subject while learning it, having fun with problem solving process, and not worrying about the exam, not worrying too much about your test scores in practice tests in coaching classes will take you a long way. Now there are those who are blessed by God to score very well even in these practice tests, and they have the skills that I'm talking about already. So there will be a few students who will be doing very, very well even in these tests, but don't look at them. You will be like them soon enough, and that's what you have to focus on. Eventually you will get good. You will get good enough. That's the message I want you to carry after this discussion. Thank you. God bless you. If you learned something today, please subscribe this channel. Enjoy more of our videos. Thank you so much for watching this.